My twin sister Abby tried to steal my life while I was on vacation. She dyed her hair, faked a tattoo, and almost seduced my husband. Get the F out of my house, he yelled when he realized. Now she's facing 14 years in prison. How did it come to this? I am a 24-year-old female and have a twin sister who has been wishing for my failure since our birth. For the purposes of this narrative, we will refer to her as Abby. Abby and I are identical twins. Our mother was the type who dressed us alike, enrolled us in activities together, and even requested that we be placed in the same elementary school classes. Since she dressed us identically, we had very prominent name tags across our desks. However, when we became aware of ourselves around the age of 6, our individualities began to emerge. Abby was fond of dresses, princesses, and anything considered very feminine, and she had a plethora of friends from a young age. I was a bit of a tomboy and more reserved, which meant that even as a child I maintained a small circle of friends. I was shy and did not seek much attention, so I was comfortable with Abby receiving the majority of it. Our parents resembled the cheerleader and football player, homecoming king and queen high school sweethearts depicted in a 1980s film. Once we reached high school, Abby followed closely in our mother's footsteps. She became cheer captain, dated the quarterback, and was crowned queen at homecomings and proms. Although it was likely unintentional, my parents did seem to favor her slightly over me. I remained quiet, dyed my blonde hair black to distinguish myself from her, and continued to have a small group of friends. Her malevolent side revealed itself early on. Initially, my parents had a large floor bed where we slept together when we were old enough to toddle around. However, this arrangement proved unworkable. I do not recall it personally, but my parents recounted multiple occasions when they would enter the room and hear one of us crying, only to find Abby sitting on top of me and hitting me. They installed a baby monitor camera in our room and discovered that she would wake up, climb on top of me while I was still asleep, and then slap, hit, bounce on, and scratch me. They enrolled Abby in toddler counseling and converted my mother's craft room into a room for me. I was never told what became of the counseling sessions, but I never heard of her being diagnosed with anything. Mind you, this behavior occurred when we were just 1 or 2 years old. As we grew up, she continued to engage in minor misdeeds. She would steal my belongings, destroy my items, hit herself to create a red mark, and claim I had harmed her. She would hide her own possessions in my room and accuse me of stealing them. She destroyed her own things, such as teddy bears, drawings, books, and clothes, and told my parents that I was responsible. Consequently, I was frequently in trouble and developed resentment toward both her and my parents. When we got to high school, Abby and I found ourselves in the same math class. I always excelled in math, so I didn't closely monitor my grades. Halfway through the semester, my math teacher asked to speak with me after class. She inquired whether I was struggling or if the class had been moving too quickly lately. I was puzzled and asked why, and she explained that I was receiving very low scores on all my homework assignments. She mentioned that she was baffled since I consistently performed well on my tests but poorly on my homework. I asked if she had any of the assignments in question, and she did. She handed me a recent assignment with my name at the top, but I noticed many answers that I knew I had not written. I assured her that something was amiss because those were not my answers. She asked if I was saying that the paper with my name on it was not mine. I requested another copy of the homework and offered to complete the first 2 problems right in front of her, which I did. At that moment, we both acknowledged that something was wrong, but neither of us considered Abby. Until that point, her mischief had been confined to home. She had always left me alone at school. My teacher promised to keep a closer eye on the homework submissions, and shortly thereafter, Abby was caught engaged in her misconduct. As students entered class, they would turn in their homework to a tray at the back and take their seats. After I submitted mine, Abby retrieved it, substituted her name for mine, deliberately answering incorrectly, and returned it to the tray. After speaking to me, my teacher vigilantly monitored the homework tray and witnessed Abby's actions. Our parents were brought in for multiple meetings regarding this incident. For the rest of the quarter, my teacher marked all my assignments with my name in purple ink and Abby's name the same way. She instructed Abby to submit everything to her personally. Following that semester, it became a rule that we would never be placed in the same class again. My parents sent Abby back to counseling, where she was diagnosed with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder at 14. I do not comprehend how attention deficit hyperactivity disorder would lead to such behavior, but that is the situation. When we turned 17, Abby attempted to implicate me in a legal problem. She stole my purse while I was sleeping, took my car, sped past a police officer, and then fled from him. When she finally pulled over, she produced my driver's license from the purse, informed the officer that her hair was now blonde instead of black due to a recent dye job, and they booked her under my name. We had to go to court to resolve the situation, but she did not face any significant consequences, only a lengthy grounding from our parents. How she escaped repercussions for actual identity theft remains a mystery to me. As a result, on my 18th birthday, I visited a cosmetic tattoo artist who applied prominent, yet natural-looking freckles to my face. I also returned for microblading to darken my eyebrows and receive a small amount of lip filler. I had saved a considerable amount of money from working, and birthday money supplied the remaining funds. My mother also contributed to these processes as a birthday gift. This was my best attempt to physically differentiate myself from her without undergoing plastic surgery. Once we left for college, things improved. Initially, I informed my family that I had been accepted to the University of California, Los Angeles, and was going there. When the time came to move, I loaded my belongings alongside Abby. When she drove out of the driveway to the right, I went left, saying I was heading to a friend's house to say goodbye first. However, I had already said all my goodbyes the night before. I was actually on my way to Florida, go Gators. For those curious about how I managed this, yes, my parents were complicit, and it was even my father's idea. During my senior year, I experienced a breakdown regarding college applications in my room. My father entered to comfort me and offer assistance. My parents were indeed great parents. They just related more to Abby, who was more responsive to attention than I was. I expressed my desire to attend a college away from Abby because I wanted to be my own person, not just Abby's twin. I knew she would apply to the same institutions if she discovered where I was applying. Yet I also wanted to share in the excitement with everyone and celebrate my acceptance to college. My father advised me to apply wherever I desired but swap the name with a different college. Therefore, I applied to the University of Florida while claiming I had applied to UCLA. When I was accepted into Florida, I told everyone I had been accepted to UCLA. My father bought me UCLA t-shirts, which I wore on designated college t-shirt days at school. I even wrote UCLA down as my school when we graduated. During the ceremony, our school announced our future trade schools, colleges, or careers as we walked up, giving us triangle flags with 3 flowers in our school's colors and a teddy bear dressed in the school's colors. Mine was all decked out in blue, yellow, and white. The night before I left, while Abby was out with friends, my father unearthed a box from their closet and gave it to me. Inside were numerous University of Florida shirts, hoodies, and sweaters he had collected from various shops and thrift stores. On my bed, there was a white, blue, and orange daisy, a small flag with the University of Florida emblem, and a teddy bear wearing a Gators shirt. I cried. Furthermore, our move-in dates for dorms were not the same. Mine was a week later than hers. I discussed everything with my roommate, and we devised a plan to rent a small Airbnb near the beach for the week before moving into the dorms. As my second semester of college commenced, I formed a large circle of friends and truly felt like I was emerging from my shell. I had not heard from Abby since the day we left. However, my mother informed me that Abby had complained to her extensively. My mother assured Abby that attending different colleges should not matter since we had never gotten along well. Flash forward to my third semester. I had been dating a guy, whom I will refer to as Brian, for 4 months, and I decided to make our relationship Instagram official by posting a photo of us together at a tailgate. However, I had neglected to block Abby on all my social media accounts when we moved. Initially, Abby attempted to reach out to Brian, flirting with him and asking for a FaceTime call. He blocked her quickly upon realizing our history. However, she took things too far once again. She created a fake Facebook account in my name, wore a black wig, and took inappropriate pictures of herself. Then she joined our college's Facebook group under the fake account and uploaded every single photo under my name saying, "Sorry, guys." Brian, whom she tagged, didn't want these, so I figured someone here might. This post circulated rapidly, and many people mistakenly believed it was from me. I approached campus police and our dean regarding this issue, clarifying that it was not me. I zoomed in on photos where the wig appeared imperfect, demonstrating that she had no freckles and more. Our head social media administrators banned Abby from any of our school's social media, both on her personal page and the fake one she had created. They also issued a post clarifying that this individual was not a student at our institution, but rather was impersonating students and instructing others not to engage with her. I made a post on this page to clarify that it was not me, unbelievable as it may seem. It was my twin sister. The post included zoomed-in screenshots where I had cropped out her inappropriate images and highlighted the same wig and freckle discrepancies I had shown to the police. I also requested that if anyone came across social media pages claiming to be me without a long history of posts, they should block them. As for everyone else, I do not know if they believed me. The truth was what it was, but my circle of friends stood by me and defended me when necessary. The school's administration held a meeting with me regarding the situation, during which I explained my past with Abby and even about how I had deceived everyone regarding which college I would attend merely to avoid her. They banned Abby from the campus as a precaution. Brian and I graduated college and relocated together to a moderately sized town in North Carolina. After moving, we also set up a new phone plan and changed our numbers. In the time between college and this moment, I had acquired a prominent tattoo on my arm, a long black and white flower. We lived and worked in North Carolina for about a year until we received the call informing us that my mother had terminal cancer. After discussing the matter with our family and friends, we moved to my home state about an hour away from my hometown. Regardless of whether Abby moved back, which she did, we did not want her to know where we lived while she was in the area. Once we had begun to settle, I contacted Abby and suggested we have lunch. During our meal, I expressed that while our mother was unwell, I would really like to leave the past behind us and at least coexist for her sake. Surprisingly, Abby agreed enthusiastically. During this period, our family held numerous gatherings, meaning Abby was often around my husband and me. However, she maintained decorum and our interactions remained friendly. Approximately 5 months ago, my mother succumbed to her illness. Brian and I made the decision to remain in our current location for at least the rest of the year. I wanted to stay close to my father during this challenging time because I felt he needed me as well. 3 months ago, we had dinner with my father, who informed us that Abby would be moving back to California to return to her previous job. Brian and I even assisted her in packing and leaving. After she was gone, we reverted to no contact. 2 months ago, a close friend from college invited me on a girls' trip to Cancun to celebrate her 25th birthday. Initially, it was a last-minute plan and I did not intend to go. However, my father and husband encouraged me to take a break and enjoy myself after everything that had occurred, so I took off work and went. The trip lasted 6 days and we had an incredible time. However, what I returned home to discover truly shocked me. It turns out when Abby informed us she was moving back to Los Angeles to resume her previous job, that was a lie. She had actually been fired from her job in Los Angeles. Instead, she moved to a town 2.5 hours from our hometown. On the second day of my trip, I posted on Instagram. Since I had Abby blocked and she was supposedly in Los Angeles, far from anyone we knew mutually, I felt safe. However, she was not in Los Angeles, and a girl from our high school informed her about my post. Abby had already devised a plan as soon as she saw that I was away. She intended to impersonate me while I was gone and go to great lengths to accomplish this. She dyed her hair black, used makeup to create fake freckles and darken her eyebrows, and even located a tattoo artist to replicate my tattoo in the same position. On the fourth day I was away, Abby applied her makeup, donned an outfit I would typically wear, and went to my father's house first. Upon arrival, she knocked, and my father was naturally surprised to see me back. Abby told him that something had gone awry with my friend's family, prompting me to return early. She explained that she had lost the key to my house and requested the spare that we had given him. Naturally, believing it was me, my father handed it over. To this day, I remain unaware of how she discovered our address, but she did. She went to my house while Brian was still at work, parking her car on a different street. When Brian returned home from work, he was greeted by the sight of me standing in the kitchen. He embraced me warmly, kissed me, and asked why I was home so early. Abby regurgitated the same tale she had told my father. Brian began asking about the vacation, inquiring about what we had done and how much fun we had, with Abby fabricating stories. Abby settled into the living room on the couch. Brian noticed that my tattoo appeared red and swollen, glistening. He asked me what was going on with it. Abby suggested it must have gotten sunburned. He questioned why only the tattoo appeared sunburned, unlike the rest of my arm. Abby dismissed him, claiming she did not know but that it felt burnt. Brian continued to observe her intently. She glanced at him and stated that she really missed him, asking if he wanted to head to the bedroom. He hesitated and reiterated his question about why only my tattoo was sunburned. Abby demanded he drop the subject, prompting Brian to approach her and examine her arm more closely. He commented that it looked like the tattoo had been done the previous day. She froze in panic and asked what he meant. Brian walked back into the kitchen and asked where my luggage was. Abby replied that she had put it away. At this point, Brian texted me asking how I was doing while keeping his eyes fixed on Abby. She had picked up the remote and was mindlessly scrolling through shows on TV. A minute later, he received a text from me that read, "Having so much fun, miss and love you." He realized immediately that something was off. He called out Abby's name and she glanced at him momentarily before looking away, questioning why he said her name. He stated, "I know you're Abby and I want you to get out of my house before I call the police." Abby attempted to protest, arguing that she was clearly me and accusing him of acting irrationally. Brian suggested he call me to confirm, which she vehemently opposed, again labeling him as the irrational one. He informed her that he was either going to call me or the police. She fell silent, simply walking out. Brian kept this information from me until I returned home because he did not wish to worry me while I was away. When he finally informed me, I was furious. We hurried over to my father's house to discuss the situation, and my father admitted he had handed her the key under the impression it was me. We promptly contacted a locksmith and had our locks changed. They agreed to come that same day due to the urgent nature of the situation. That evening, Brian and I stayed at my father's house. We resolved then and there to return to North Carolina at the first opportunity and also decided to file charges against Abby. The following day, Brian and I filed a police report. Law enforcement was able to trace her current address. Over the ensuing weeks, whenever the police knocked on her door, she was never home. Brian and I have just moved back. We are still settling into our new place. Abby has since been arrested. During her questioning, she broke down and confessed that her plan was to lure my husband into sleeping with her by impersonating me, videotaping the encounter, and sending it to me. Additionally, they obtained a search warrant for her residence and discovered that she was dealing drugs, including marijuana, methamphetamine, and opioids. She has been charged and sentenced to 14 years in prison, along with a fine of $150,000. Story 2. My heartfelt journey through toxic love. I felt trapped in her chaos. After a DUI and emotional abuse, I'm left questioning my worth. I've only known heartbreak. It's been a year since I broke free, but how do I meet someone new without fearing the worst? Hello, I do not know if this is the correct subreddit to ask this kind of question. I am not the most frequent user of Reddit. However, I have quite a bit to share to explain my thought process here. I am a 22-year-old heterosexual male. I have been in 2 relationships in my life, both originating from high school. Both ended negatively. My first heartbreak was when my ex left me for someone else, or that is how it seemed. My more recent ex, whom I was involved with for 4 years on and off in the latter half of that period, has traumatized me significantly. I have a lot to say, so please be patient with me. I have struggled for about a year now with my process of moving on and my anxiety about meeting new people or trying to move forward. I strongly believe that this particular ex, with whom I went through a difficult time, has caused this issue within me. What was initially a healthy relationship for a couple of years was absolutely destroyed due to mental health issues, in my opinion. She was diagnosed with multiple mental health disorders at a young age, including depression at 9, and she has been on medication for most of her life. She is bipolar, and honestly, I believe she also has borderline personality disorder. This was what led to our initial breakup. She would be happy one day and incredibly depressed the next, trying to break up only to revert to her meltdown the following morning. This happened for months until I could not take it anymore, unsure if she loved me or not given how often she attempted to end things with me. To complicate matters, we were in high school, I was a senior and she was a junior. Right before prom, she hated how she looked and sent me pictures of her self-harming. She would also share direct messages of random guys being disgusting, rude, and sexist toward her. There is so much more I could elaborate on, but I believe you can get the picture. During this time, I had never truly been exposed to mental health issues. I did not understand what they meant to the full extent. I took everything at face value, believed everything she said, and it really affected my feelings toward her and whether she truly felt the way she claimed to feel. We broke up 2 years into the relationship, stayed in contact, and after a few months began hanging out with benefits again. I had moved out for the first time, entering a genuine new chapter in my life. She moved 5 minutes away to be closer to me. Keep in mind that during this time, I was extremely confused about how I felt about her. One day she loved me, and the next day she would talk about how she was not worth it and needed to leave. I had no idea how she truly felt. This lasted 3 to 4 months. I regained my trust in her and fell back in love. I never articulated my feelings because I was so terrified of being hurt again, feeling inadequate due to her threats of leaving or feeling unworthy. It turns out that just as I was warming back up to her and seeing her more, I discovered that there was someone else she had been involved with. It broke my heart. I ended the conversation there and I was heartbroken again. I couldn't bring myself to block her and simply move on. I allowed her to do what she wanted and was trying to fade that chapter out of my life. A month or so passed and she contacted me begging to see me and talk. She came over, brought alcohol, and began crying hysterically, explaining how horrible this new guy was, how manipulative and controlling he was, etc. Long story short, we ended up being intimate, and she had been unfaithful to this new person she left me for. Overwhelmed by her actions, she could not handle telling the guy what happened. In my view, she sought an escape from the controlling person she claimed to be with. So I informed him. She lied to him, saying nothing happened and that was that. A week went by and she was suicidal, making questionable statements, so I said I would go over to check on her because I could not fathom her doing something like that. I went over and who should answer the door but the guy? He confronted me about why I was lying about being intimate with her, and I refused to stand there and say that never happened in front of her and this man. I defended myself regarding what we had done, and she ran inside and attempted to commit suicide. She ingested all her pills and drank an entire bottle. I learned a couple of days later that they had to break down her door. And because she was manic, they had to pump her stomach and admit her to a psychiatric facility. In my opinion, this took advantage of me. I feel like I am too much of a sympathetic person because I had grown more attached than ever due to my fear of her genuinely trying to commit suicide. I saw her 2 weeks later when she was released. The man she practically left me for broke up with her the same day she attempted suicide. Everything pretty much started over again. I was seeing her constantly, we began drinking heavily, and in my mind it was subconsciously a coping mechanism for the chaos we had both endured. We were intimate, hanging out, and getting close again, and that is when her manipulative and gaslighting behavior began to resurface. She concealed her involvement with someone else from me, playing with both of our emotions until I had proof of her infidelity. Yet again, I was heartbroken. She left for another person, yet again another unstable person. I have a wild story about this guy attempting to take his own life, but I have shared so much already. I was once again hurt. I cut her off and wanted to move forward. A single month passed and she found a way to contact me. It was on Valentine's Day. She mentioned that this day was terrible for both of us, suggesting we hang out to at least make it less painful. Apparently, the guy she was with was too unpredictable for her and things went south instantly. We hung out that same night and ended up being intimate. So here I am once again, attached and back in the cycle of this chaotic person's affection. We wanted to make it work, but in time. Months went by and I tried to get through day by day, and this is when everything began to deteriorate between us specifically. She would be extraordinarily rude to me, saying I was not like those other two guys, despite my hearing the worst possible things about them nonstop. She insulted me over selfies I had on my phone, thinking I was trying to see someone else as if she were not already that person. There were constant insults and degradation, claiming I was not enough. Then the next day she would switch her mood, saying we were perfect, soulmates, and that we had a genuine good time. What I had originally experienced with her over a year earlier had escalated to a much worse and more personal level of hurt. About 2 years ago, we were drinking extensively, frequently having drunken nights that we would both forget. We were trying to ignore all the chaos we had both endured up to that point in an attempt to make it work. Before anyone mentions it, when she first originally left for someone else, I should have never spoken to her again. I will never put myself through this again. She grew aggressive as she attempted to cope with her traumatic experiences with these other people. I recall one specific argument where she misheard me mention the name of a song that had come on. She interpreted it as me lying somehow and hit me repeatedly across the face. I sustained a bloody nose, and after several instances of being hit, I retaliated by slapping her across the face a couple of times. I am not proud of this in any capacity. I would never lay my hands on anyone. However, after being smacked numerous times, I felt I could not hold back any longer. We would both sympathize, expressing how terrible that behavior was and how awful we were. We would reconcile well in those moments, yet I am still not excusing the toxicity of what transpired. Fast forward a few months to October 23. We decided that perhaps we should move in together to bring us closer, allowing us to mature together and have our own household. I can say that this did not last more than a month and a half before tragedy struck once more. She once again was unfaithful with a coworker at a work party outside of work, of course, and attempted to hide that from me. Sharing a lease and a whole apartment together, she gaslighted and manipulated me into thinking I was crazy for suspecting there was someone else involved. Since she had slept with this person, she felt compelled to remain with him. It was absolutely insane to me. So here I am in our apartment, where we had started this journey together while she wanted to leave again. I had to find out online that she was with someone else, and this is when everything began to collapse. Immediately after 2 weeks, she would return to our apartment 2 to 3 times a week, ranting about how terrible this guy was, a drug dealer, a gang member, and part of a family of felons. I harbor no hatred toward the guy. Life deals out horrible cards to everyone, but on the surface, why does she continue this behavior? Each time she came over, she would be intimate with me and talk about how she wished none of this had happened but felt trapped. Keep in mind that drinking continued. At this point, I was a full-blown alcoholic. The liquor store was a literal 5-minute walk away. And that continued for 3 months. She would see me multiple times a week, we would indulge in alcohol, and she would rant about my problems and her grievances with this guy. She was so consumed by depression that she accepted getting his rap name tattooed on her lower back, a tattoo of someone she actively despised. It was astonishing, to say the least. As early last year progressed, the usual chaos returned. I was getting drunk almost daily, trying to cope with the turmoil I had got myself into over the course of the previous year with the girl I had once revered. Don't misunderstand me, the first 20 months were pure bliss, but I held on to that memory forever, desperately trying to recapture it. I will admit that I tried moving on multiple times, as I mentioned earlier, and sought revenge by being intimate with others, much like she had done. However, that is not who I am and I hated it. Therefore, in my view, it was all whatever. We were having a normal night of drinking and being intimate, involved in conversation and rants about God knows what. She had forgot her antidepressants with her sister. They are twins who lived about 10 minutes from me. In my mind, I thought we would retrieve them in the morning before her scheduled time to take them. We lived right by the main road, and I was not inclined to have her walk miles down that street. I don't know why, but that was my thought process. Additionally, I worked overnight shifts, so we would be up extremely late, often until 3 or 5 a.m. That night I blacked out. I woke up in my car, the airbags deployed. I crashed almost instantly after starting to drive. Fortunately, no one was injured and no cars were harmed except for mine, which was totaled after hitting the curb. I was 4 times over the legal limit and charged with a DUI. I am not proud of this. I am quite ashamed. That is not who I am. I have never driven in such a state even when slightly buzzed. This occurred at 6 a.m. apparently. I had called her sister to give her a ride, so for whatever reason, I decided to drive, which I cannot comprehend. I stated before that this girl had a significant hold over me due to my sympathy toward her, ignoring my own needs in the process. We broke the lease a month later. I moved back in with my parents, and who knows what she did after that. Conversations slowed, with her constantly drunkenly calling to apologize for something she did not even remember. Meanwhile, I was on the path to recovery from this entire ordeal. It was a true rock bottom for me. Now, if anyone is still here reading, I am surprised. At this point, I am merely sharing my story regarding my worst experience with love. 1 year later, I still deal with the consequences of that charge: extremely expensive insurance, a breathalyzer interlock with bi-weekly payments, and a new car with a monthly payment. I hate that this DUI is now part of my life. I do not believe I will escape its ramifications for years while I am still young. I feel embarrassed by the breathalyzer in my car to the point of hiding when I need to provide a breath sample wherever I may be. It has been a year. I have been terrified of love, anxious about first impressions due to my charge, and fear being treated the same way again, verbally and mentally abused. I cannot manage dating apps. I have tried Tinder, Hinge, and Bumble, and out of all that nonsense, I have had one single conversation with a woman. It does not feel real, and I just do not want to form a connection through an app infamous for hookups. That is not who I am or what I want. I have experienced a great deal of personal growth. I am much healthier, I am staying fit, and I have found a relatively well-paying job through hard work. I need that discipline, so I believe it has been beneficial for me. I do not discuss my experience with her with those around me because it is depressing. It is sad, and I feel ashamed to say that she did this to me after the substantial trauma I have already shared and talked about with others. So in long, lengthy terms, I am unsure what to do. It has been a year. The ex I have discussed took her first opportunity at a connection and returned to her ex who has schizophrenia. We have been out of contact for an incredibly long time, and I genuinely do not care about her anymore. I have tried to make amends and move on, but that is simply not the case, and that is okay. I rarely think of this person anymore, but when I do, I tend to overthink. Perhaps this is a reflection of that, I do not know. Finally, to my question, how do I meet others? How do I overcome this overwhelming fear of a similar situation occurring again? I have only ever known heartbreak with those I love, treated as if I am nothing concerning fidelity and trust, but I genuinely want to get back out there. I wish to heal wounds that I know will take more than just time. I attend therapy, not frequently, but I do go. I just want to regain my confidence. I do not want to settle for the nonsense dating apps offer, as it will not be real. I do not want to sit alone as time flows by, still held captive by this fear of being treated as if I am absolutely nothing once again. Story 3. My friend turned my project into a mess, and I got benched after working round the clock. You're an idiot for not asking for help, they said, but I was drowning. Now I'm sidelined in a role I never wanted. Is a fresh grad's sanity really worth so little? Hello everyone, I 23 male am seeking some opinions here, so I will explain some ongoing situations. I will alter details from actual events, as the individuals involved in this story use Reddit. Essentially, I joined a small startup in October 2024 under contract to work for a specified number of months. I was a recent graduate, and this was actually my first real job. The company is an event organization that also presents itself as a marketing consultancy. We primarily conduct marketing events such as roadshows and conventions for our clients. In the first few months, I quickly became friends with everyone at work and primarily managed documentation. A friend of mine who works at the company became my direct supervisor. As time progressed, we were assigned a project to manage a convention for our clients. Apparently, my friend chose to appoint me as his project manager. I was only 2 weeks in with no prior experience, and now I was appointed as the project manager. The worst part, due to the small size of our team, we were already overwhelmed with another ongoing project. I mainly learned from ChatGPT because my friend was busy managing multiple projects. I was responsible for communicating with MCs, organizing activities, and overseeing various tasks. Initially, this project had a year-long deadline, allowing us time to brainstorm ideas. However, eventually, our other project took precedence, and we spent 2 months traveling across the country promoting for our clients. During this time, the convention project was barely addressed. On January 1 of this year, as we were approaching the conclusion of the other project, we received notification that our initial proposal was rejected because the company decided to reduce the budget. We scrambled to develop a new concept. I proposed an idea based on a game show, and we worked on it, finalizing all the details before submitting it. Then our client informed us that the budget was being reduced again, which meant we had to change hotels and locations. However, they liked my game show idea, so we retained that. What followed was a complete mess, as we rushed to find a new location, new activities, and new hotels. We proposed 3 ideas: a racing event, a horse track, and a standard convention featuring my game show. One evening, our client arrived around 8 p.m. and suggested another option: go-karting. He wanted go-karting. To clarify, this conversation occurred at 8 p.m. with the proposal deadline set for 10 a.m. the following morning. We worked through the night until 4 a.m. before submitting it. By 8 a.m., I was back at work, awaiting client feedback while the rest of the team chose to work from home. He responded the same day, instructing us to discard all three ideas except for go-karting and the game show, and he mentioned that all the hotels had to be changed. The project deadline was now established for the first week of March, and we had only 3 days to create a new concept, work on it, and find a new hotel. We worked tirelessly to secure a new hotel closer to the go-kart venue and submitted the revised proposal. A day later, my colleague inquired about room occupancy. I mentioned what the hotel had provided me: king sharing, meaning one king bed for 2 people. My colleague informed me that was a significant no, as the company had strict guidelines against it. I confirmed with the hotel, but they could not offer anything else. I eventually faced substantial criticism from my boss and my friend about this and had to find another hotel. Ultimately, I secured one that met all our requirements. I had to resend another proposal, and while the client was satisfied with the updates, they also criticized me for the hotel issue. By the beginning of March, the client extended the deadline again, this time to the end of March. However, the team was also engaged in another project with a deadline of March 7. Since I was not involved in that project, I worked on mine essentially alone for 4 consecutive days, managing communications with the hotel, the go-kart venue, MCs, bands, and entertainment, while also overseeing documentation, checklists, briefing documents, agendas, crew briefs, and item lists. I was managing everything by myself. I was likely leaving the office between 11 p.m. and 2 a.m. every day for an entire week. One night after departing the office at 11 p.m., I went to take a shower and broke down both mentally and physically. I could no longer handle it. It was evident I was suffering from insomnia due to work. I was working weekends and I felt like everything I was doing was in vain. I remember arriving at work looking disheveled and defeated. I could not speak, I could not think, I just kept pushing forward. My friend continued to assign me more work. I began to forget details about the project. I would space out when I was at the office. I once blacked out while at the office. I was unsure what happened but couldn't recall that period. I also started gaining weight due to stress eating. Out of everyone, it was my boss who noticed I was struggling and intervened to lighten my load. He assigned team members to start assisting me since the other project had concluded. My documentation, checklists, and communications were handed over. My boss even sat down with my friend and me and told us we were both foolish. He explained that I was foolish for not asking for help, but when I explained that I had requested assistance and was turned down because everyone was busy, he acknowledged my situation. He stated that while he was aware of the circumstances, I should have come to him so he could provide help sooner. He then told my friend he was foolish for overwhelming me with work without checking in. He pointed out that I was a fresh graduate with no experience and was being forced to handle so much documentation alone. He reassured me, mentioning that now, with the entire team involved, we would complete the project successfully. Privately, he told me that it is just a job and no job is worth jeopardizing my mental health. With the team assisting, circumstances improved. I finally had time for personal matters instead of solely focusing on work, and I could leave the office at 7 p.m. instead of 1 or 2 a.m. Yet by March 10, I had to relocate offices because our old space was becoming cramped, and a new hire was joining the team. I moved into an office with the design team and continued working. That's when I began to realize that this relocation was diminishing my communication with the rest of the team. I was unable to receive updates as quickly, which hindered my work. Then, I discovered that my position as project manager had been removed by my friend and reassigned to someone else. That impacted me deeply. It was significant because being the project lead or manager influenced our bonuses. It also left me feeling disheartened. I had worked on this project since day one and now I was being pushed out because I was unable to cope. I was angry, I still am. I worked incredibly hard for months only to be replaced. I was demoted to minor checklist roles, then was instructed not to even do checklists because someone else would manage them. I was confused. I had done all the work, and now I was not even allowed to handle my own documents. I asked if there was anything for me to do, and they said, just do documentation, which was already completed. Currently, all I am managing is the purchasing of game products, which are nearly finished, and custom clothing, which is also almost completed. Then the final blow, they began making changes to the project without informing me. I had already finalized a briefing, and they suddenly told me to revise it because the schedule had changed. I feel completely adrift. I have been sidelined from my own project, potentially forfeiting my bonus, having all my work scrutinized, and now I am not even informed about project changes. Worst of all, I thought that having the team involved would reduce the burden, but it hasn't. I am not permitted to manage my documents, yet they continuously ask me questions about various matters. They also bombard me with numerous inquiries. especially about the technical details regarding wires, power outages, and so on information I do not possess. I have never handled that aspect of the planning, and now it is being blamed on me for not knowing, even though the situation continues to change and I am not kept updated. I was also recently criticized for not being aware of the timing of a specific religious event occurring in my country. I had discussed this issue with the hotel and they had provided me with a particular schedule. Soon after I lost control of communication with the hotels, I was informed that this was not the correct timing. Like, what the heck? I even showed proof of it and was told they had updated the information and that I should have remained informed about it. I swear I bit my tongue during that moment and wished for an escape. The ironic thing is that I do not excel in this line of work. I tend to excel in physical tasks and leading a team, but losing it all makes me feel like all my effort has been in vain. All I wanted was to perform my job. I had no training, was thrust into the deep end and told to swim, only for them to throw me into the flames and not expect to get burned. My final date is a week after the project concludes, and honestly, I feel as if this company has taken so much from me that I will never allow it to happen again. I plan on leaving the moment my contract expires. I wrote this because a friend suggested it might be therapeutic and help me release some pent-up frustration. All I know is that I am still angry and disappointed. I have endured so much, and all I receive in return is being relegated to the sidelines while everything I contributed is altered. I have never felt so isolated. I am sitting in the office now, typing this with a pit in my stomach. If you have read this lengthy post, thank you for taking the time. I am simply expressing this because I want to scream and all I can do is write. Story 4. Caught in a love triangle, I learned my crush is still tied to her FWB Jason. I can't drop him, he's my best friend, she said through tears. Now I'm stuck stressing over my feelings while watching them interact. Can a relationship thrive amid such history? This post is essentially a stream of consciousness, so I will begin without further ado. I have been communicating with this girl who currently has or had a friends with benefits situation. We are both African American and were very close friends before our conversations began. We have been on more than a few dates. After our most recent outing, she asked if we could stop by her apartment to have a serious conversation about something that had been on her mind for a while. This is not a new situation for us. We have known each other for about 3 years, and I regularly visited her every month before we started talking in this manner. When we arrived, she welcomed me in and allowed me to raid her refrigerator while we discussed various unrelated topics. Then we moved into the heart of the matter. At this point, she started to explain that she has been involved in a friends with benefits arrangement with one of our mutual friends, Jason, for some time. Although she is very interested in me and would like to advance our relationship, she will not be ending things with him due to their long-standing friendship, essentially describing him as her best friend. She informed me that she has not met with him in that way since our second date. I put second in quotes because we have been on numerous dates, but that particular one marked the second date we had since becoming more intimate. She then gave me a moment to process this information. Honestly, it came as a surprise because while she is open about her personal life, she only shares details when directly prompted. Additionally, there were no signs of her and Jason being involved. They behaved completely normally around one another. No extra touches, no glances, no sudden smiles. Nothing. I suppose I was making some sort of facial expression, as she seemed to sag a little and stated that if we became more serious, she would be entirely comfortable setting boundaries regarding their interactions. She also clarified that while she does not expect me to be cheerful about being around him afterwards, she hopes I can at least be polite. Again, these are only expectations if we make things official. She began to snuffle and appeared a bit teary-eyed, emphasizing that her feelings for me are genuine and that she truly wants to officially call herself my girlfriend, yet she understands if I no longer wish to pursue her. I cannot stand to see people cry, so I caved in and held her for a moment until she calmed down. After a brief silence, I asked if she could give me some time to think it over. She replied, yes, of course, and showed me out after we separated. Before anyone starts shouting that if I end up with her, it is clear that she will cheat on me with him, I want to clarify, without sounding arrogant, that she would not. She is vehemently opposed to cheating and quite frankly detests the concept altogether. This stems from her mother's involvement in multiple emotional affairs, one nearly becoming physical behind her father's back during the last years of their marriage, all in the name of keeping food on the table, paying the bills, and feeling wanted. Those are her mother's words, not hers. One memory that she recounted when revealing all of this was from high school. While getting off the bus, she literally saw her mother secretly meeting up with one of her friends at the neighborhood park, which was also the bus stop. She did not provide many specific details about her father, but she mentioned that he would resort to calling her mother derogatory names and initiating screaming matches whenever other people were around to embarrass her. Overall, it was a terrible marriage. Interestingly, their parental abuse was never directly aimed at her. Her mother was physically and verbally abusive to her father, while he was verbally abusive to her mother. They made sure she knew that they both loved her in every way that matters. The one time she remembers being physically hurt was when she blocked her father from being struck by a ceramic mug thrown at him by her mother, which ended up smashing against the wall near her face and cutting her cheek and shoulder. She still bears the scar from this incident. They remained together for about 20-something years, the last few years being because her mother developed lupus and had burned all her bridges with her family. They are currently separated. She has limited contact with her father and no contact with her mother, only really speaking with her father on his birthday or during family events. The point is, Jason was there for her throughout all of that. I previously mentioned that they have known each other since they were in diapers, which is no exaggeration. Their parents were friends, they attended the same daycare, and they went through the same elementary school, middle school, high school, and even college until she was involved in a car accident that forced her to take her classes primarily online for the remainder of the semester. They stuck together throughout everything. Jason was there for her during nearly every significant event and milestone in her life before I entered the picture. When her parents would engage in screaming matches, he would walk or drive to her house to provide her with an escape from them. When her parents were late to her graduation, guess whose parents showed up in their place? His family often remarks that they consider her a second daughter. They are unaware of the friends with benefits arrangement, I hope. Thus, I completely understand why she refuses to remove him from her life if we progress to something serious. He has been her best friend since she could babble. I have only known her for 3 years. It has been a week since our conversation. Although I have not yet raised the topic again with her, we have been discussing other matters, effectively avoiding the substantial issue at hand. Our friend group managed to take a trip to the beach this past weekend, and I felt a twinge of jealousy every time I observed her interacting with Jason, although this was not frequent since she was nearly glued to my side all day. I even had to tell her outright that it was acceptable for her to mingle if she wished. She brought it up once during the trip, and when I politely but firmly told her I had not fully made up my mind yet, she quickly backed off and altered the subject. I am honestly somewhat ambivalent about the entire situation. Yes, I am uncomfortable knowing that the girl I am infatuated with had a friends with benefits relationship with her best friend, but at the same time, I am not as bothered as I initially thought I would be. I am an avid lurker on the best of Reddit updates, and generally nosy, so I have read all sorts of scenarios where relationships were damaged because of a friends with benefits arrangement, often thinking, this outcome was so obvious, haha. Yet now that I find myself in a similar situation, I cannot help but concentrate on how much I truly care for her and the potential loss to a guy she has known for nearly half her life. She has clothing at my house, half her essential skincare products, plushies. The last time I visited her apartment, I realized just how bare it appeared because most of her belongings were already at my place. She is an incredibly kind person and a wonderful best friend. I genuinely cannot express how much would change if she were not in my life. She's the type of person you could call at 3 in the morning, ask to come over, and she would arrive with a baseball bat in one hand and a container of cookies in the other. I just do not know whether I need to remove the rose-colored glasses and see the reality of the situation or shift into high gear and make our relationship official.